and welcome to another episode of the Pod World Travel. My name is Penny Thomas and I am a travel journalist here at the West Australian, and today I am joined by Travel Editor Stephen Scourfield, and I'm also joined by another travel writer and expert photographer, Mogens Johansen.
Thanks very much, Penny.
Hi, Penny.
Nice to have you. So today, Stephen, you'll be chatting to us about a recent trip to Africa, which sort of has a beginning, middle and an end. You were sort of telling me about the journey. But before that, we might go to Mogens, if that's okay, who's actually just going to run us through a quick little sort of printer that you've got your hands on recently.
Yeah. It's like we were just talking off air before about, what you do with all these pictures that you might have taken in Africa or any trip for that matter. And obviously, some of us like to still head down and get some proper prints done and put them in albums and so on. But there's a product out from Canon which is called a selfie printer. It's a fun little product. It costs the printer costs about $240. It's about the size of a sort of good crime novel, if I can put it that way, in book sort of size, and it prints up to postcard size. But the fun thing about this product is not so much that you can print out pictures, which is obviously very convenient, but it's more that through your app on the phone or from an SD card, you can print out little collages of pictures, and you can create sort of fun little postcards of a place. You can put sort of borders around them, and you can put artwork onto them, you can put text onto them, and you can do all this on your phone and then just press print. It's brilliant.
So you can be quite creative with them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, really. I spent ages yesterday when this thing arrived just setting it up and having a play with it. And the
really, quality's really good, isn't it?
Yeah,
those prints that you've got on the table here, the colours are really spot on. Yeah,
so when the printer prints it, it goes through the sort of process of, it goes through the printer 4 times, sort of forwards and backwards. One's for yellow, green and red sort of thing, and then it puts the last process, it puts a sort of cover film over the picture, which Canon says they'll last in an album up to 100 years, so which is pretty standard for photo quality prints, generally speaking, when we're speaking proper photographic paper. So it's good in that sense. It takes about 40 seconds, I think, to sort of do a print, and it costs about 40 or 50 cents to produce. So, like I said, it's probably not the sort of thing you do if you just, like Stephen, been to Africa and have got, several hundred pictures you might want to print off.
I've got 6 sharp ones.
So it's sort of for your hero images from a trip if you were sort of selecting some.
Yeah, and also those, I think, for family events it could be quite fun. Imagine if your grandparents are over seeing the grandkids and that sort of stuff, you can, take a few pictures, present them with a print straight away. It could be like weddings and, just events like that. It can be a fun product to have sitting there, because anyone who has a smartphone can just scan a QR code on the thing and connect to it. And then if you download the app as well, then you've got the opportunity of putting all this sort of artwork and sort of personal touch to your pictures.
I really like that, saying it at an event, at a gathering or something. That's fantastic to be able to walk away with print, isn't it?
I think so. It'll be a sort of talking point, really.
Yep.
Yeah. Watch what everyone sort of comes up with. It's also great that you can just use your mobile. You don't need a Canon camera that sort of connects with it.
Exactly, yeah. But you can... there's an SD card reader in the printer as well, so you can put your card in and select your pictures. There's a kind of sort of quite a large LCD display on the top, which is sort of easy and intuitive to use. You can sort of work your way through what you want to print and go from there. So it's good little product for not very much money, really.
Does it plug into power?
Yeah.
Or it's not rechargeable?
No, it plugs into power. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, thanks for that. Stephen, I guess we'll go to you now, who's just returned from Africa.
Yes, mainly Botswana and Zambia. It was an extension of, what we do as writers. It was a travel club tour, through West Travel Club. We partnered with Imagine Holidays, who did all the sort of the hard work, the bookings and things. But it was a project that was, it's kind of the most difficult and interesting and easy tour that we've done, in the sense that they're all places I know well. So firstly, Zambia, Botswana were particular choices because they've been stable since independence, 60s. So you've had 60 years of stability, very anti-corruption, which is pretty much the measure of success of African countries, and just good conservation records. So everything about those countries, I knew I didn't have to worry about taking people to countries where things were going to be maybe tricky, let's put it like that. So firstly, Zambia, Botswana, anyone, Africa, if you want to see animals, you want to see culture, Zambia, Botswana, absolutely can't go wrong. And over, obviously when you're looking at southern sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa comes to mind. In all honesty, that would be 6th or 7th on my list. So
okay.
I think that's a first fundamental for anyone listening. And then, as you said, kind of from then on, it's like writing a story. It's exactly like writing a story. So the beginning, bush camp, Okavango Delta, Machaba bush camp. And there's a little trick here, which is that in national parks in southern Africa, guides have to stay on the tracks. If they go off the track, they basically lose their license. So if a lion is 200 metres away and they're on a track, the lion will remain 200 metres away. But Machaba bush camp and some of the bush camps in Okavango Delta, but particularly in this Kwai Valley, is on a concession. It's a different kind of land category. Okay. Which means that if you see an elephant 200 metres away, they will come off the track and drive up to the elephant, and it's 2 metres away, so it's quite a difference.
Right, quite close up.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. So they can move around off-road on a concession.
Yeah.
So day one, 6 lions.
Wow.
A standoff with a hippo, which gets out of the water and confronts them, and you're sitting there going, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. That's not a bad start. By the end of that evening, we were driving back in the dark, came around a bend on a track, and there was a leopard lying in the road in the headlights. And you go, that's not a bad finish. So that's concession is an interesting thing to look for if you're planning an African safari, because it's a game changer. So Machaba, then Chobe River, which is very good for bird life. And of course, then there's a change in texture because it is national park, so you are on tracks. But the game drives, a lot of them are in boats on the river.
Oh, okay.
Because everything comes down to drink.
Yes.
So suddenly you're looking at the front end instead of the back end, which is...
How fascinating.
Yes, it's good as if... There was one scene, Penny, wow. We're on a boat and all these elephants have come down to drink, and they got the babies and this and that and all that. But then they went up the boat, and you've got time, so you can just sit on a boat and watch what's happening. The baboons are just kind of the bad boys of the bush. They're just always trouble, They come down and cause a bit of trouble, and then they go, and then the elephants went up. And they'd actually they dug holes in the bank, and they were putting their trunks in, and they were literally shoveling out bucket loads of mineral sands and eating them. It's wild. I mean, just watching this mining going on for mineral sands. So Chobe River, different. So it's just a different thing. Then we went on to Victoria Falls, which is pumping. I mean, the Zambezi at this time of year, end of the wet season, great time to go. So once again, for anyone listening, thinking about Victoria Falls, yes, you've got to do Zambia, but Zimbabwe, the two sides of the falls. You've got to do both sides. There's no question about that. And it's worth the $30 US to go over to Zimbabwe to see the other side. So stayed at the Royal Livingston Hotel, fancy, banks of the Zambezi, use your key card, your room key to get down to the falls. You're that close.
Okay.
And then Elephant Camp, Zimbabwe, which is the transition back to a bush camp, and finished in South Luangwa, which is in northeast Zambia. We had 11 flights, so I had charter planes for the group. So we're flying in small planes between places, which was pretty fancy. And then finished at a bush camp, but in a very different environment. So we're kind of like where we started, with an organic, authentic experience, but in a different environment. So it's kind of like the beginning, but different. So, and I know it's a pretty classic story structure.
I mean, it sounds like a real life Lion King sort of movie, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And it was so interesting for me, it's interesting for me as a writer and as a travel editor, being with people experiencing these things, because it was kind of my best of, it was my wish list. So yeah, it was very personal, and it was the result of many trips in these places. So I kind of picked my favourite places and just wrote them in order, and then Shannon Lees, who's fantastic at Imagine, booked the whole thing, which was a nightmare, but anyway, she did an amazing job. It included canoeing on the Zambezi River, which was compulsory.
Oh, really?
Absolutely compulsory. So we did that with the hippos, which is always interesting, because hippos
large creatures when you're sitting in a canoe, aren't they?
Yeah, they're large creatures. Do you know a hippo can run 40 kilometres an hour on those little stumpy legs?
Wow, that is faster than I would have thought.
They're much more dangerous than they're the second most lethal animal in Africa.
Wow.
After the
mosquito. Of course you get in a canoe.
Absolutely. And it's compulsory.
It was always compulsory canoeing. There was no way out of this for anyone, because I wanted to go, so they had to come with me. So the guides at one stage, there were a lot of hippos. The guides, actually, we sort of stopped on the bank, and we held people there, and the guides went down and then were banging their paddles on the water like flat, sort of slapping them on the water, trying to scare the hippos off, or just move them.
Or make them angry.
That exactly occurred to me, like this could go either way. And then we sort of...
That would have made a great story.
Yeah. And we sort of snuck round them, then caught a bit of... There was a really good current, it was flowing fast, so we sort of whizzed past them, and I was pretty happy to get the group past that.
So, Stephen, there were 18 people as part of the group, is that correct?
Yeah, so we were a group of 18, which is nice and small.
Many people done Africa or these parts before?
No, quite a lot of new people. Look, there were people who were new to Africa, and this was the best of the best of. So I've kind of spoilt them a bit.
Perfect.
Because anything after this will be, this was my best of from, let's say, 25 years of travelling there, probably more. But anyway.
Wow.
Certainly the last 20 years, this was my best of. So, yeah, and it's unrepeatable, so I like that. And it is, generally with Travel Club and what we do, it's our kind of business model is to come up with an idea, get away with it, don't ask for feedback and never do it again. So this was exactly that. It's always interesting to see people react. And I think as writers, we learn from that, because it's not that we become blasé, but we certainly become experienced. And so, I've seen elephants on, however many trips, and lions and this and that. So I can go, well, yeah, this lion scene isn't quite as good as the one I saw in 2008, whatever it is. But see people going, oh, my goodness, there's a lion right in front of me, And lions aren't really scary. Elephants are more scary.
Oh, I'm sure I would be a little bit scared, for sure.
But the thing about safaris, I've only been on one, but I can imagine that each one, even if you go to the same place, would be so different. Because you're not seeing
you're right.
the same animals for a start, but the different behaviours and different sort of interactions.
Yeah, that's exactly true. The guides are hilarious, because they love Aussies.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they absolutely love Australian travellers, and they loved our group, because wherever we went, guides have a pretty hard time. So, if you've got a specific interest group or a photographer's group, and dare I say, different nationalities have a different kind of demands on the guide. So if you've got a group of photographers who want to photograph leopards, they can be very tough on guides. Like, I want to see this, and this, or just generally, I want to see this, and this. And, it's 11 o'clock and we haven't seen this, and like, where is it? So the guides are flat out trying to supply what the guests want.
And what Mother Nature can bring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tough, but you get some very uncompromising people, and if they're birding, they want to see this, and this, and this, and we're only here for 2 days, and they're not interested in excuses. They just want to see these things. Aussies turn up and they go, oh, what do you want to see? Oh, whatever's out there, we'll be happy, sort of thing. So the guys are going like, this is the easiest group ever, because they're going, and we're all there around a dung beetle. Oh, wow, it's a dung beetle. The guys are like, you're kidding me. Everybody wants to see a leopard.
Excitable.
And we go, oh, yeah, well, if you see a leopard, that'd be good. But if you see a dung beetle, that's fine, So Aussies are just great.
Can I ask, what sort of vehicles were you in when you were out and about?
Yeah, the safari vehicles, generally, well, no, not just Toyotas and Nissans, so Hiluxes, Land Cruisers. So they sort of cut them off and then have rows of seats at varying levels. So for photographers, particularly if you're in the high back seats, which is a bit bumpier because you're hanging out over the end, but it's great. You can actually have a monopod, long lens. We had, some 500, 600 mil lenses there, and on a good monopod. And you and I think you've got one too, the Sirui brand, Sirui. Will's got one too, he's nodding. That brand of monopod is really good in a safari vehicle. So you're not going to use a tripod, and you're not going to get out, because that's,
Dangerous?
Dangerous, yeah.
You just basically bait then.
You're just burly. That's right. So monopod, long lenses, very good. Just on the photographic thing, I must say that some of the lenses now are coming without the monopod mount under the lens. The collar.
Yeah.
So you have to buy the collar separately, and it's a really important thing to do, that if you've got a super long lens, you don't want the monopod under the body of the camera. So anyway, I think all that preparation is really important, because once you're there, it's just on. You're doing game drives 2 or 3 times a day, night drives, and it's too late. You're out at a bush camp. So really getting prepared was very important.
Yeah. And often we do talk about travelling with our phones or our biggest sort of cameras, and you would recommend definitely taking a good...
Look, I'm a bit torn, Penny. It's a very good... I'm a bit torn now, because I was watching... People, guests who, this is where we learn, this is the beauty of doing these things. I mean, I could be there on my own just doing my thing, but watching how travellers travel is such an education for us, And I was watching people who were just using their phones, who wouldn't consider themselves to be photographic, and they were getting really great collections because they're very familiar with the phones. And the photo walks with phones that we do, some of the guests had been on our photo walks, Mogens.
That's good.
Yeah,
so that's why they were good, weren't they?
Well, they got a lot of the tricks, that you pass on. So, but because they were doing, stills, then naturally doing video and vertical video and this and that, they were getting really good collection of their journey. Whereas if you're moving between a camera and your phone, you're kind of thinking in different formats. So I'm a little bit torn about that. I think that the people with phones are doing well. You just don't get the zoom. You don't get that zoom quality.
But like you said, I mean, you're often quite close, aren't you?
But you're often, to begin with, you were close. So the people with phones were getting as good, getting good pictures, because they've got a...
I remember one time I was sitting in, a safari vehicle. I had my, a big 400mm lens, and there's 2 hippos, sort of play fighting in a bit of water, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really good. And then, once we were ready to move on, the lady sitting next to me who was shooting on an iPhone, she says, "Is this any good?" As good as
that's right.
It's rubbish.
Well, actually, one of the people travelling, he's coming in today. Actually, for a catch up, and I'd said to him before we went, we were talking about lenses. I said, you can't be too long in Africa, which is true if you're in a game park. So if you're in a national park or a reserve on the tracks, as I've said, you can't have a lens that's too long, because if you're 600 mil and you're trying to get a line under a bush 200 meters away, you can't have a lens that's too long. But of course, on the concession, our first stay, when they drive up to things, suddenly you've got 100 to 400 and you can't get the whole elephant in it, So it was really just photographically, and I've made this point, if you're interested in photography and you're sort of serious, I reckon that if you're going to buy I had Canon R7 bodies with me, and they performed so well. I'm so happy with them. But you just got to buy two. If you're serious, buy two bodies when you buy in. Buy the same. I know it's expensive, but spend the money then. Two bodies, two lenses, you're done.
Okay.
One body, two lenses, you're always changing and it's dusty and you never got the right thing on.
Yeah, so. You won't miss anything. That's why, you just back to my previous job as a news photographer, most news photographers will carry two camera bodies, one with a wide angle zoom, one with a telephoto zoom, and then you're ready for anything without having to switch lenses.
Yeah.
The settings are identical, you just... Yeah, it's just there.
I think, I know it's all money, but if you look at that kit, you're looking at two R7s, an 80 to 150 lens on one, and 100 to 400 on the other. So you've got everything, and you're looking at about $6,000, which I know is a lot of money. But if you're serious, you're done. You're completely, utterly done. And that kit was fantastic for me. So I was very, very happy. The quality of what I was getting was good. So
I spent more money on a push bike.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, you put it in context. It's sort of photography as a hobby is something that you can do all your life.
That's right.
It's an investment in a long-term investment.
And old blokes like me, we come from $1 a click, where you were buying Velvia, Provia film, processing it, and it costs you $1 a click, basically. So, and now it's sort of, once you bought the cameras, it's basically free. So, I think making that investment right up front just opens up your photography like you wouldn't believe. Yep. Yeah. And certainly in that circumstance, yep.
Yeah, nice advice. So, well, it sounded like a great trip. We'll have to read about it across the sort of travel pages and online.
It was a great trip. I loved it. I love being in Africa. And, we are all the children of Africa if you go back far enough. There's something in our roots.
Next, Penny.
Yes.
Yeah, you're next. Yeah, you're next, guys. Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Okay. Well, thanks for that. I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention quickly was tomorrow, which will be the 20th of April, on a Thursday, Western Australia, actually specifically a place called Exmouth, is going to be the best place to sort of be in the world to see the solar eclipse. It's been in the works for, I think, people have been planning for about 3 years. So it's a very exciting time for Exmouth. It's also school holidays. It's going to be packed. It's going to be busy. There's going to be lots going on. And the main event is the eclipse, which I'm actually not sure what time that will occur.
It's about 11 in the morning.
Okay.
Yep, 11 something, yep.
And that's the best view you'll get from Exmouth, but we will sort of get
80%. We get 80% in Perth. So I think if you just hold your hand up and just look between your fingers, that works.
Or if you get the proper glasses that you're supposed to.
Probably the better advice, actually.
Okay, Penny. Far more sensible.
Well, okay, thanks for today, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny.
Thanks, Penny.